Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Rob, aka Big Bear, and this is producer Jeremiah. Welcome to the Rehash, where the only thing crazier than the presenter's hair is the news itself. As you guys know, I didn't do a rehash last week because it was Easter weekend. Don't listen to those Orthodox believers. That was the true Easter. I'm kidding, of course. I'm not religious. I just appreciate the time off work, to be honest. Today, we're doing some speedrun stories, starting with a story from April 3rd. A school in Western Kenya has been closed indefinitely as 2 students have died from what is suspected to be food and water poisoning. More than 100 students of Mukumu Girls High School have been hospitalized for abdominal pain and diarrhea last week. Next, a former headmistress of an Orthodox Jewish school in Melbourne, Australia, Adas Israel School, has been found guilty of sexually abusing 2 out of 3 sisters when they were students and when they came back to work as student teachers. She did flee to Israel in about 2008 but was extradited back to Australia eventually and has since been charged with those crimes. Moving on, and Japan is kicking up controversy again with a vending machine in Samboku selling cuts of black bear meat. Now, these size of bears are classed as internationally vulnerable, but Japan says it limits numbers that can be hunted. Wild. In 2021, Cleo Smith was kidnapped from her family's tent in the middle of the night. It was 18 days later, thanks to the tireless efforts of Western Australian police, that she was found not too far from her actual family home. This story garnered worldwide attention. Terrence Kelly, age 37, pleaded guilty to the crimes last week and has been sentenced to 13 years and 6 months in prison. He apparently suffered severe trauma as a child and was a meth addict and created this fantasy world to rid himself of reality during this neurological episode. Finally, America just keeps surprising me. Floridian government has passed a bill that will enable anyone to carry a concealed weapon. That's right, anyone. Their aim is to protect schools even more. Think about that for a quick minute. Wild. All right, those were some of the biggest stories from last week, and I encourage you to seek out more information online and have a good read about things that you don't necessarily see on the TV. More often than not, the TV doesn't show us everything, as I'm sure anyone watching this can agree with. There's more to the world than which Kardashian has married which other celebrity. So let's move on to the week that was. This first story comes from Japan, where they had to order an emergency evacuation or getting people to hide in shelters in Hokkaido as North Korea had launched a ballistic missile at a high angle, which fortunately enough ended up landing between the Korean peninsula and Japan. North Korea commonly tests its weapons in this area, so it's not an unusual thing, but with North Korea's evolving missile threats, it seems like the Japanese government is a bit on edge. This next story comes very close to my hometown. As you guys know, I live in Sydney. A lot of crap goes on here. A woman from the Bankstown area who worked at a state government agency called Service New South Wales has unlawfully used her occupation to get personal information on someone and provide it to criminals, in which back in March, they kidnapped this person for 6 days and tortured him by pulling out his teeth. And it all was a case of mistaken identity. It wasn't even the guy they were after. She's since been fired from her job, and I've got here a list of what she's been charged with. So it says the woman has been charged with take/detain in company with intent to ransom, occasion actual bodily harm, unauthorized function with intent, serious offense, and then it's got in parentheses penalty greater than 10 years, access/modify restricted data held in computer, and participate in criminal group, contribute criminal activity. Oh my god, she goofed up big time. Next up, former Indian politician Atiq Ahmed has been shot dead live on TV with his brother. Ahmed's son was shot just days earlier by police in what would be considered a shootout. Ahmed was charged with kidnapping in 2019, and he was also facing charges of murder and assault. Looks like the people couldn't wait for the judicial system to work and took the law into their own hands. I don't condone this type of behavior, but I mean, he had it coming, right? The Sudanese army and paramilitary forces have battled over the presidential palace, state TV, and army headquarters, and over 50 people, including civilians, have died. 595 people have been seriously injured during this bloodshed. This has been going on for quite a while, and the fighting is being done by army units loyal to the de facto leader, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and the RSF, which is the Rapid Support Forces. Hopefully this bloodshed can end soon because there's electricity being cut off in parts of the city and people aren't able to get basic necessities. The final story from this week's Rehash comes from Mexico City and happened just yesterday. At least 7 people were killed, including 1 child, when gunmen opened fire at a public swimming pool. Police don't know their motives and they're still investigating why they did this and trying to capture the assailants. On top of that, 1 person was seriously injured and had to be rushed to hospital. It's crazy to think there are people out there that will go to such a public place designed for fun and family and cause such gruesome mayhem. That's it for this week's Rehash. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you see a story that you feel should be featured, put the link in the comments or at me on Twitter, BIGBEARRAU, links in the description. From me and from producer Jeremiah here, tell someone that you love them, stay hydrated. We'll see you next week. Peace.